Record meeting. Yeah, so our meeting record is started now. Okay, so let's start with what is .NET, right? So basically, .NET is a unified platform to develop, debug, and deploy the applications. Okay, so .NET has been introduced in the year 2002. Okay, so even I have started my career in the year 2003. So that is the where even I have chosen .NET is a future basically. So using .NET basically you can create your console applications, Windows applications, and web applications. Even nowadays, mobile applications. There are so many things you can build the applications using .NET. Okay, so initially in the year 2002, .NET has been introduced by targeting only on the Windows. Okay, so it means you can build the applications, develop the applications and then deploy the applications using only on the Windows platform. Okay. Okay, I'll just make something for you. So in the year 2002, when they released it, it is only on the Windows platform. So which means dev, deploy, all these can run only on Windows platform. Okay, but later on, slowly, so as part of these releases, you can build using Windows applications. That's using C#.NET and then VB.NET, and then they also have F#. There are so many different technologies. The languages. Okay, so that's what they have released. And also when it comes to technology, right? Then ASP.NET. Okay, so that's the web technology they have used. And then slowly they have added WCF, WPF, and then Windows workflow. So these are all the things they were keep on adding on the next two versions. Okay, but they have also thought about targeting to different platforms. In addition to Windows, they want to target to iOS and Linux. Okay, and also they were also planning to have cross-platform and open source. Okay, so that is the where they have thought about the open source and then platform targeting. They have released on the year 2016. Okay, so they were calling that one as .NET Core, okay, which is an open source and cross-platform. They have released in the year 2016. Okay, so after that, you can build the applications, desktop, web, mobile applications, not only on the Windows platform, you can build on the iOS as well as the Linux platforms. Okay, after that, .NET has become very much popular because it's targeting to multiple platforms now. Okay, and also it is open source, means the source code is available for you to be downloaded from the GitHub environment. Okay, if you have any doubts you can stop me in between, that is still fine. Okay, so yes, they were having a .NET Core initially, but from the .NET 5 onwards, they have mentioned that no more it is a .NET Core, it is a uniform .NET. So using that, you can build Windows applications, web applications, mobile applications, by targeting to different platforms, and also it is cross-platform. Okay, and now it is a .NET 8 version currently it is running on, which has been released in the last year, November. Okay, so if you put the pictorial representation of the .NET evaluation, this will be like this. In the year 2002, they started with the .NET Framework 1.0. See, you have to remember that when I say .NET Framework, it is targeting only for the Windows platform. Okay, when we talk about .NET Core or .NET, which means it is a open source and it is a multi-platform. It means Windows, not only Windows, and then iOS, Linux, all these platforms also they have covered. Okay, so when it comes to .NET framework, they have stopped adding updates from the year 2019. So by that time, they have released the .NET Framework 4.8. After that, no more updates, just the maintenance only. But for the .NET Core, they have mainly concentrated on the .NET Core later on, and then .NET Core 1.4 is released in 2016, and then continuously they have been upgraded, and in the year 2023, it has reached to .NET 8. Okay, so they have already .NET Framework. So why they have introduced .NET Core? Okay, so as I said, it is a completely open source and cross-platform. Okay, but when it comes to .NET Framework, let me show that to you. Control N. So when it comes to .NET Framework, when you are trying to create any application, there are by default many libraries are there. So these are all very huge libraries. Even though if you don't use it, by default it is added to your application. Okay, so which means your application size is very big. And also when you are trying to deploy the application onto your Windows server, because it is a huge thing, when it comes to performance wise, it is slower. There will be a slow performance. Okay, and also it is not having any support by default support for the URL mapping, and then no URL friendly. Okay, and also it is not SEO friendly. So SEO means search engine optimization. Okay, so because all of these issues they have mentioned about a .NET Core. So what is a .NET Core basically is, so .NET Core is completely rewritten. So it is basically subset of .NET framework. Subset of .NET framework, and it is completely rewritten. And also it is very lightweight. So whatever the Microsoft has been observed the issues into .NET framework, they have fixed into .NET Core. That is the where it is become very lightweight. And then by default, all the libraries won't be added. If you want to add, you can add any new packages using NuGet Package Manager. So using that, you can add whatever library you want. So which means it is lightweight, and then because it is a lightweight application, the performance of the application is very much improved. Okay, so that is the where .NET Core has become very much popular. Okay, and then when it comes to ASP.NET framework application, that can be hosted only on IIS. When it comes to .NET Core, it has internally the internal web server that is called Kestrel. So using that, you can host the application. You don't need to depend on any other server also. It's a self-hosted. Excuse me. Okay, so that's how about the .NET Core. So primary thing here it is a open source and cross-platform, and it is a very lightweight, and so the performance wise also very good compared to .NET framework. Now let me tell you some of the concepts about MVC. Okay. So when it comes to normal ASP.NET, ASP.NET is,
I have a
the
question.
event-driven. Yeah, sure.
Do you see the chat? Do you see my chat?
Oh, okay.
Do you see the messages I put on the chat?
The concepts.
No, I'm saying when you're talking, I'm sending you messages on the chat. Do you see on
Oh,
on
okay.
our
One
chat
moment.
on here? Here.
I did not check. One moment. Yeah.
Okay. Because when you're talking, I'm responding. So because I don't want to be talking and then it's interrupting the recording.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
I
I can
just wanted
see.
to let you know. Yeah, I will be putting my comments there as well as if I have any question.
Okay, no
So that
problem.
so it will go well. So one
Because it
question
is
was
a
you
screen share. Because it is a screen share. Sometimes I
oh you
don't
wouldn't see.
notice it.
Uh-huh.
I did not see. But yeah.
Okay.
So I'm just wondering. Yeah, I think here it is a chart. The comments. I'm just wondering where it can be displayed because if I am running the meeting.
Yeah. Look up here on your right. On your right. On your right. On the thing. No, not there. Go back to where you're sharing.
Yeah,
Go
I
back
think
to your
this is the
share.
where I can see. I'll just keep this one. Yeah, here it's this comments is different. This is not right
Oh,
one.
it's different.
But yeah,
Okay.
so what I can do is I'll just keep open this one at the side.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then we can see if any message comes. Okay.
Okay. So I had a question
Yeah.
on the previous slide. You had a thing IIS or ISS. What is that?
Okay, it's called Internet Information Services. Okay,
Okay.
so yeah, I'll just put it here. So what I mean to say is, say ASP.NET is the technology to build applications. Okay, so even using Java also, you have, I think, Java server pages, right?
Mm-hmm.
Java
GSP.
server pages you have, I think. So even in order to, once you build the applications using Java server pages, it's all your pages, right? Somewhere you need to deploy your JSP application. Okay. I think you use Apache, something like that, where you deploy the JSP application and then using your HTTP protocol, you can access your application. Correct? So the similar way,
Correct.
when it comes to Windows in ASP.NET, once you build the applications, okay, the web application, you need to host somewhere. So Microsoft is having Internet Information Services where you build your ASP.NET application. Okay, so the ASP.NET, once you host under IIS, then this can be accessible to the outside world again with the HTTP :// and then your domain name. Okay, so that is the where IIS is there within the Windows platform. Okay, but now as part of .NET Core, once you build the application, you don't need to put it into IIS. It is a self-hosted and then you can run the application. You don't need IIS. That is what I mean when it comes to .NET Core. Okay, all good?
Very good.
Yeah. So now I'm just trying to give
Hey.
you some of the basic things about the concepts. Okay, so we have covered .NET Core. Now we are in MVC. Okay, so using ASP.NET, as I said, just open new thing. Okay, so as part of the .NET framework, we have ASP.NET. Using that, you build the application, web applications. Okay, so when it comes to ASP.NET, it uses the technologies HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and then you have ASPX pages to be built using that technology. So once you build the applications, so it will give you the output libraries as .dll file where all your C#.NET or Java or VB.NET code, everything get into the .NET DLL. So that is the what the code logic will be there. Okay. Now all your ASPX page comes as it is, and then you take all of these files and then you deploy onto IIS. The similar like JSP, the similar way. Okay, so that is the how you build the application and deploy onto IIS. Okay, so when you deploy these application or build the applications, in addition to your application logic, there will be many system.dll, system.common.dll, like this, so many DLLs also coming into your applications when you deploy onto IIS. Okay, but the main thing here you need to understand is, so when it comes to .NET, when you are building using .NET, ASP.NET application, okay, so you have a feasibility to use the controls ASP colon text box, ASP colon label, so something like that. Using that you can build the controls. So these controls, when it comes to render to the browser, when you use HTTP colon / and then application, right, .aspx, these controls are rendered into your HTML pages, all HTML tags. You know HTML tags, how it works, right? Okay, so in terms of transferring this ASP colon something whatever control, ASP.NET control into HTML, again there is a logic in the background within the .NET framework to convert these tags into HTML. So this is very time consuming. So performance wise it is slow. Okay, so when it comes to .NET Core or MVC, okay, so you are directly dealing with HTML tags. So the application runs very faster because there is no controls of ASP.NET controls which will take time consuming to convert them into HTML. Okay, but yeah, slowly you will understand those concepts. Okay, but when it comes to MVC, okay, so it doesn't depend on the server side code and then controls side like that. It is having mainly 3 components. Okay, so you have model where you define the classes. Okay, this is the how my model should be, my class should be, or the properties. So come here. Okay, so when it comes to model, it is like a data representation for your class or something like that. Okay, so when it comes to model, you can create like a student model. What it is going to have: name, and then his grade, where in which grade he is studying, and then what are all the subjects. Okay, so parents name, these details, right? So this is called a model when it comes to student. So the models are very important where it contains the data. Now when it comes to controller, when you are actually making any HTTP request, this request comes with colon / your domain name, say google.com for example. Okay, and then say my controller, that is students, and then get student. Okay, and then the parameter, what is the student you want to fetch. So I'm just trying to explain that to you here how MVC works. Okay, your domain name and then your controller and then your action method. Okay, so here if you look at it, this is your controller. Okay, so that is the how your control is here. So control can basically will talk to your model and then view. When it comes to view, what I mean is, so you have action, you hit this URL and then in the background there is a view. View will contain mainly HTML, CSS and then JavaScript. So this will be rendering, I mean the view will be rendering to your browser. Browser, when I mean it can be Chrome, IE or Opera, any other browsers. Okay, so this browser will be having this view which contains HTML, CSS, JavaScripts. Those scripts will be executing at your browser and then transforming into user interface. Okay, so this is how the MVC workflow works. So compared to .NET framework, it is a kind of a different technology. Okay, and then you need to understand that MVC is not just used only for the .NET. MVC is a design pattern. It is a kind of one its own individual design practice, architecture practice that can be implemented any of the technology in that matter. It doesn't care about Java related or .NET framework related or Python or any other thing in that matter. Okay, so yeah, that is the main advantage of having MVC pattern. Okay, so because you have divided your application logic into three components, individual components like model where it involves your C# related classes, how you are creating, right? So that architecture, and where you have controller, where you define these are all the action methods into my controller. And then here is the mainly HTML, CSS, JavaScript involves. Three kind of developers can work on three different technologies. Okay, say so I'm one developer, I know only HTML, CSS, JavaScript, then I can work on this concept. Okay, at this level I know C# .NET, so I work only on the model. I know mainly how the request comes and handle the responses, then I work at controller. So because of three separate components involved, each and every developer can work on different technology here basically. Okay, so now how you can build .NET Core applications or .NET Framework applications is you can use Visual Studio or Visual Studio Editor. Okay, so Visual Studio 2022 is very much popular, which I am using. So the Visual Studio 2022 can be installed from Microsoft website. So here is the URL I just mentioned, and what are all the missing requirements also I have mentioned here just for a reference. Okay, so you have mentioned anything. So right now I know HTML tags works. So you know about HTML, CSS and JavaScript, right? But I won't take much time, but just give one small examples of that, how it works.
Sure.
Okay, that's good. And now let me create one sample application using Visual Studio 2022. So using that, Visual Studio requirements and the URL, I have already downloaded Visual Studio on my machine. Okay, now let me open Visual Studio. Visual Studio 22. Okay, so this is how the initial page it comes. Okay, so if you have already opened any of the projects, then you can continue with that application, with that project. Or if you want to create any new application, then you have an option, create a new project. Okay, so let's go with that. Okay, so when you open here, this is the initial screen. You see here a lot of different varieties of applications you can build using Microsoft Visual Studio. There are many varieties. You are looking after Blazor also, that is also there, and many other concepts. And then Angular, React, and then plain WPF applications, class libraries, Windows Forms application, and then ASP.NET application using .NET framework. So again, I'm reiterating, when I say .NET framework, the application which you are building using this technology works only on the Windows platform. Okay, remember that.
Mhm.
Okay, so when I say .NET Core or .NET application, that can be work on either Windows, Mac OS, or Linux. These are all the platforms it is targeting. Okay, so but as of now, we are targeting mainly on the MVC, Model View Controller, and ASP.NET Core applications. So I'm just using the recent template, which is ASP.NET Core web app using MVC. Okay, now let's create using this one. So once you click on next, then you have project name to enter, and then where you want to save your application into your local drive. That is the way you can mention. Okay, and then solution name. Okay, I'll talk about project and solution slowly. Okay, now I'm giving an application name. .NET Core MVC application. Okay, you in for example, you can put any of the name, or if you want to put in any business terminology, you can put student management or anything like that. Okay. Okay, so just click on next. You can see it here, what are all the technologies it is targeting, but I currently mainly using C#. So in addition to C#, this .NET Core comes with VB.NET and F#.NET and many more. Okay, so currently I'm using C# as my coding language. Okay, so because it is a .NET Core, it is telling that this application can work on Linux platform, Mac OS platform, and Windows platform. Okay, and then it is a web app. Okay, so I'm clicking on next. So what is the .NET version you are going to use? It is from the drop down, you can choose what version you want to use it. Okay, so I'll go for .NET 7. Okay, so as of now, I'll just put none for the authentication type, configure for HTTPS. So HTTPS basically the whatever the request and response is happening through a secure protocol, that's called HTTPS. When you build the application, it can have HTTPS : the domain name, and then all the page things. So the request and response will be secure. Okay. So I'll just put that, configure for that also. Now I'm creating the application. Still creating. Okay, so it has been created. If you look at here, this is called Solution Explorer. Means this is your solution, what you have entered, called student management, and under that you have one project called student management. Okay, if you want to have multiple projects under one solution, you can have, but solution is only one name. Okay, solution is like at parent level. Brilliant. I'll just show that to you how it works. So solution is at your parent level, and under that you can have multiple project, say project 1 and then project 2 and then so on, so on, so on. So when I say project 1, so that can be your web application, and then when it comes to project, then that can be Windows application, or if you want to add any library project you can add. If you want any mobile application you can also add under that. So it means solution is at your parent level, and then under that you can have multiple projects that can be any technology which supports .NET Core. Okay.
Okay.
Now currently we have one ASP.NET Core MVC application under your solution. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have covered this show in Visual Studio. So we have created how the .NET Core application in Visual Studio, and then now your application folder structure. Okay, if you look at this, okay, so you have a different folder structure. Okay, so this is where I'm trying to explain to you what are all each folder or name refers to. Okay, so there is a www root folder. Basically it contains your static files. So when I say static files, it doesn't have any like C#.NET language component of it. So it can have your HTML files, JavaScript files, and your style sheets files. All of these can go to your www root folder. Okay, and also there is a folder called controllers, because we have chosen MVC is the technology to build our .NET Core application. All of these folders will be created for you. So yeah, what MVC stands for? M means models, V means views, and then C stands for controller.
Controller.
Okay, so all of these files can go into your these folders. Okay, and there is one called app settings.json folder. So JSON is the extension which represents that the file content is in a JSON format. So JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. So JS means JavaScript, O stands for object, N means notation. Means the content you write into our app settings file, those are all you need to mention in a JSON file format. Okay, have you heard about JSON file format?
Mm-hmm. I used it. We use JSON a lot.
Okay.
Serialization and deserialization of JSON. Yeah.
Yes. So that is the where we have kept the file format as JSON, because it is a performance wise, it is faster to read and write. So that is the way, as part of the improvements into .NET Core, instead of XML files, they have added JSON files. Okay, in a .NET framework, when you are building ASP.NET application, you are having a configuration file called web.config. So this web.config is in a XML file format. Means whatever configs you mention within that file, it is in a XML file format. So they observed this is a performance wise it is slower, so they have improved to convert it to JSON. Okay, so as I mentioned, this file basically having all of your configuration settings to run your application. Yeah,
Right.
so you can have database connection strings, any of the application variables to run your application. Okay, and also you have program.cs. Okay, so it is the entry point to run your application. Okay, so here is the way you specify how your application host will be, and how your authorization, authentication, your web server, how it works, and then many more things, whether your application is going to use the MVC. So these are all the points you need to specify within your program.cs.
Okay.
Okay, so these are all the very important things when it comes to application structure. and then now we will see how we are going to use in our classes. Okay, so as a start point of thing, so I'll just create one HTML, sample things about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And then we can close today. Then after that we will cover into look into mainly in detail. Okay.
Okay.
It's 10:46, but yeah, so if the meeting is ended before 1 hour, then I'll send one more link, then we can join. Okay.
Okay.
Now let me go to our solution. Okay, so as I mentioned, all of our JavaScript, CSS, and HTML, you can put it into your www root folder. Okay, and I also mentioned controllers, views, and models. These are all the controllers, models, and views. When you create your project, by default, the application is created with default some controllers. Okay, so if you want, you can delete them and create your new controllers, or you can just refer these controllers, models, and views, the existing ones. Okay. As I mentioned, application settings, and then program is the startup point. You see here, it has already come with some of the code. Our application uses HTTPS, so that is where it has mentioned one line for that. And then if you have these static files, then your application can make use of these folders. Okay, and then how your application root URL will be. Okay, so this is your controller's root. Okay, so as I mentioned, right, in the URL, how it is going to be is your http:// and then domainer, domain name, and then controller, right? So currently we have home controller. So by default, it is a controller, and then action, and then any parameters goes here. Okay, that is how your MVC application works.
Okay.
Okay. Now, under www root, let me add one folder called HTML, because we'll just create one HTML file. New folder, HTML. Okay, under that, I just put one. So you can right click on it, and then there is the add. So there are by default so many things are coming, controller or browser component, all that. But now we are going to add HTML. So you can click on new item, and you can see lot of varieties here. These are all the different files you can add. Okay, but currently we are targeting HTML. So let's look for